Um, release my video.
Okay. Okay. Now we're ready, and we're gonna get this start.
So Diana, tell us why you brought us all here together.
Sure. So first of all, I want to say Happy New Year to all of you. It's still the New Year, especially the Chinese New Year. And thank you very much for spending your time here with us together. So this is the perfect pitch, and we're so honored to have David. Because as an entrepreneur, the fact is less than 5% of entrepreneurs can get the present to the investor and resonate with them at all. So David started this perfect pitch many years ago and help entrepreneurs get to know how to resonate with investors program. Focus on one of the most popular sections of capital access series. So program which equipping the entrepreneurs to accelerate their access to capital and more. And David is an entrepreneur, investor, educator, expert at equipping entrepreneurs and help investors. He has 35 years of entrepreneurial accomplishment to aspiring next generation entrepreneurs and led to more than 25 market cap growth of the public company in 3 years. He practices serial entrepreneurs. He has pioneered B2B products and service for both creators and consumers. We're so honored to have him. And also a little bit about Dinin TV. And Dinin TV, we're the content and connection for Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. We're also a education platform, education space, helping the startups and entrepreneurs and connect with the investors. We have our branding show, Innovation Dialogue. We are also the organizer of Silicon Valley Entrepreneurs Festival. And we also organize a year, launching your product. And we have we organize this once a year, help the startup when you got a product ready, and we help you to launch them. And we're going to have an event together with the investors and also potential partners and the consumers, and also the e-commerce platform. So hope that through this platform we can connect from here and work together in the future. So next, I'm going to give this time to our teacher and mentor, Miss David Mosby. David, it's your time.
Thank you very much, Diana. Welcome, Hamid and Don, Sandy, Jim. So Hamid, where are you? Did I pronounce your name right?
Yes, you said correctly. Not too many people can say that very easily. Hamid, very correctly. Good job. That was very nice.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, right. So, I'm in Northern California. I'm here in Saratoga. So, and yeah.
I used to live right down the street from you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I live right close to Saratoga High School.
Oh my goodness, right. Okay.
So I am a longtime transplant to Silicon Valley. I came here from Dallas, Texas, as a kid. I just graduated college, and I ended up coming to Sunnyvale, actually about 2 blocks from Diana's building. And it was the first venture-funded software company in Silicon Valley. And so I had great good fortune to meet and work with a guy named Pitts Johnson. Pitts Johnson and Tim Draper were the two guys. Tim Draper Sr. were the two guys that essentially founded the venture investment community in California back in early 1970s, as I recall. So, so thanks for joining us.
We got another guest come, and it's Chunyang Liu. Chunyang, how are you? Can you hear us?
So
Yes,
let's
just go ahead and get started. Maybe later on we can have a chance for all of you to give a short introduction and get to know each other. Yes, Dave,
okay.
go ahead.
So because we've got a small group, it would be really great to start with Don. And Don, just take 90 seconds and tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're calling in from New Jersey. Hamid, then here 90 seconds, and then Jim, and there's
Very young.
Chinese alphabet that I have no hope of reading. So Don, take it away, please.
Okay, hi, my name is Don Tao. I'm from New Jersey. Originally, I'm from California, in the school at UC Berkeley. I'm a physicist by training. I work in physics, in engineer, and I retired. I'm very active in nonprofit organizations, and I also teach Tai Chi, and I have my own website. That's all.
Okay, come back to California so I can learn Tai Chi from you.
Okay.
So my son is PhD in computational mechanics, so he's very familiar with this physics stuff. To me, it's just a mystery.
Okay.
Oh no, there went Hamid. Hamid, it's your turn. So tell us about you and I think CSIX Connect.
Right. So I'm also a veteran of a high-tech industry. I've been here in Silicon Valley for many years, many startups, and did my time with the corporate. And then many years ago, I started a nonprofit networking organization called C6 Connect, which started, believe it or not, from a Chinese restaurant. That's where the name came, Cuisine 6 Chinese Restaurant. I've been to Diana's, some of her events many years ago when she had something similar to Shark Tank she used to have, I think, and I've been to her TV shows several times. The idea behind this C6 Connect is for people to help each other find jobs, mostly high-tech people who are looking for jobs. They get together once a week and they help each other. People help each other to with the connections and the open position, they share that. So we have over 8,000 members. We've been around since 2001 for about 20 years. And we have a weekly meeting every single week. We have a speaker who come and give a talk and I participate. That's what I do now. I'm semi-retired. And so that's what I run my nonprofit. Nobody makes any money. Nobody gives any money. It's all free. Everybody can participate once a week.
That's great. Thank you. I hope this, the time this evening is a good investment for you.
Thank you.
So Jim, give us 90 seconds. You have to unmute yourself first. And then tell us a little bit about you. I guess he's either not there or not participating. And let's see. So Diana, how do I pronounce this gentleman's name?
I think Diana just walked away for a second, I think.
Okay, so then what I'm going to do
call him
is
Mr. Liu.
What was that?
Let's call him Mr. Liu. L-I-U.
Oh, so Mr. Lem?
Liu, L-I-U.
Oh, Mr. Liu. Okay, so Mr. Liu, welcome. I'm going to start with, let me give you just a little bit of a context set. So as I joined the first venture funded software company in the Valley, since then I've started 5 companies. I led a public company through 25x market cap growth in 30 months. I've managed to pick up more scars than I can count. And my desire, while I'm not quite as philanthropic as Hamid, I do lead funded fee-based learning programs for entrepreneurs, investors, and innovation centers. Each of those 3 constituent groups has a unique and compelling worldview that oftentimes holds disparagement for the other 2. And so you can see this happening frequently, and it becomes a problem. My focus has been first on entrepreneurs, to help them not become investors, but learn how to think and to think with the vocabulary that matters for investors. And I play the same thing out with investors and entrepreneurs and investors in innovation centers. So a good friend of mine is the head of the Innovation Project Office at Lawrence Livermore Labs. My son is a senior consultant at Sandia. I've spent several years in military intelligence, so I've been in that innovation space as well. So about 10 years ago, I started working with Keiretsu Forum, which is the largest angel investor network in the world. And what I saw was that I was brokenhearted at the companies that would come and tell their story, and they wouldn't ever get any attention. And I believed then and now that there were many good opportunities that were poorly represented. And I had the stupid arrogance to believe that I could make a difference. And so I jumped into that fray, and I've been doing it ever since. It has been what I call is the most rewarding but least profitable part of my career. But I would rather be doing this than just about anything else I can think of. It's helping people every day in ways that they didn't expect. So hopefully you will take something away from what we're going to cover today, because yes, did you have a question, Amit? Yes, or comment?
I just didn't know if there's going to be a part for Q&A later, or should we stop you when we want to, if we have a question? How would you prefer to?
So we have a small group. Right. We have 45 minutes. I'm going to move very fast. Okay. But your questions and comments, and both are welcome. So questions, comments, and protests. This is a learning experience for all of us, including me. And so I thank Diana for the opportunity to share this story, but I'm going to get right into it because we're going to run out of time. So I'm so amazed. Where'd it go? Let's see, let's try this again. Okay. So you can see the screen that says there's a big problem, true?
Yes.
Okay,
correct,
so
yeah.
I just want to, so usually it borders the window you're sharing with green, and it's not there. So anyway, so I'm going to go ahead. There's a huge problem, and all of you have seen this, that you go to a pitch event and you see entrepreneurs tell their story, or you run into somebody at a cocktail party or on the golf course or whatever. And the problem is less than 5% of entrepreneurs that encounter an investor resonate with them at all. And that's a very painful experience for entrepreneurs, and it's very frustrating for investors. So we have to ask ourselves, you know, what's behind this? What's the why? And the why is that we as entrepreneurs tend to fail to really understand, and effectively respond to investors' key question. We misunderstand what we think that they're really looking for. And it's far simpler than most understand. The key question is, what is the likelihood that by investing with Don, I'm going to get my money back at a multiple that's okay with me? When I'm acting as an investor, that's the only question that matters. And everything else that you do as an entrepreneur is helping me come up with a good answer about that issue of likelihood. So if that's the case, then what Perfect Pitch is going to do is help guide you through a process of thinking about, how do I provide answers to investors' questions that have them develop that assessment that the likelihood is that I'm going to get my money back at a multiple that's okay with me is very high. So when you take this really simple sentence and you decompose it, you understand that everything is about this determination of an assessment of likelihood. It's never a binary, it's not a solid ironclad thing. It's a judgment that's being made by somebody that I may or may not even know, and certainly won't know them very well. So how does this all play out? Well, the idea is that there's this thing that I call the resonance cascade. And the resonance cascade falls out of clarity. When the message that you communicate is clear, then that creates a domain of certainty. And if I've got certainty with regard to what you say, I either like it or I don't, but I'm not going to be ambiguous about it. I'm not going to be ambivalent. And that certainty precipitates trust. In the absence of certainty, you cannot have trust. And investments don't happen in the absence of trust. So if I'm clear, I create certainty. If I create certainty, I create trust. And a consequence of the trust is resonance. So that's where this cascade comes from. You have to be able to accomplish these things to get to the bottom, which is here's where an investment is going to be made. So if you're not clear, which makes it possible for certainty to exist, you can't create certainty. In the absence of certainty, you can't have trust. And without trust, you can't resonate. Without resonance, you aren't going to get any money. Anybody got any questions, comments, protests about that? That's a very important fundamental idea.
Good.
And it's I haven't seen it presented like that elsewhere. So this is what we're going to try to talk through today. And then the perfect pitch is a scalable model that is built on two basic ideas. One is an entrepreneur is presenting an investment opportunity, not a product. And that's where entrepreneurs get sideways. They think that investors are interested in a product. The only reason investors are interested in a product is that it mitigates the risk of their investment. But at the end of the day, what matters is what's the business that the product emerges from. Am I going to invest in a business leader who's building a business? Because products don't make businesses. So if that's true, what are we going to do? We got to make sure that we can reveal what the investment opportunity is and how we're going to mitigate the risk of the capital that's being put into that business. Again, questions, comments, protests? And this is okay for you too, Diane. If I bring up something that stimulates a question, don't be shy. Okay, so the next key thing
Can I
here
ask
is,
a question?
yeah, please.
Regarding what you said at the beginning, I can fully understand that. That is, from the investor's point of view, they want to answer the question, how can I get my return multiple times?
Yes.
But however, from the person who invented this idea, you're correct that he has to address that question. But however, especially if the person who originated this idea has an option, he would also like to see the potential investor may also have some interest in the problem that he or she is working on.
Okay.
So therefore, it's also the other way around, especially if he has a choice. If he doesn't have a choice, then he doesn't have a choice. If he has multiple shooters, then he would also like to see, hey, they see what I'm seeing, why this is an important problem besides the fact that I can make a lot of money off of it.
Oh, thank you very much, because you're absolutely dead on. If the problem isn't big enough to matter, and I'm going to talk about that in more detail in just a minute, but the first part of any presentation needs to frame the problem space being solved. And that is more important than the product, except to the extent, and we'll talk about this much more, the product actually solves the problem that is the foundation for the big idea. And we'll get to that here in just a second. So, but that's part of the articulation of the investment opportunity. Here's why capital is needed to solve a big problem. Okay, so I've got a really good idea about how to do that. And you say, oh yeah, that's cool. But if you don't solve this risk mitigation part, then you're also just out of luck. And what happens is most entrepreneurs collapse these domains. Did that make sense, Don?
Yeah, go ahead, fine.
Okay, so the next thing here is, okay, what's the investment opportunity? Well, an investment opportunity is also comprised of several components. The first of those components is something that I call the big idea. What's the big idea? The big idea is a huge problem. And it usually, the greatest growth opportunities exist where there is a, what is called philosophically, a structural breakdown. There's something that people want to accomplish, but they can't. When your idea makes that can't a possible, then people will rush to buy it. And it doesn't matter what it is. If there is a problem that they really care about, and which is what you were just speaking to, I think, Don, is if there's a big problem that they really care about, and you figured out how to solve it, they will come and buy it. But there's many other risk mitigation hurdles that get in the way of that fact. So the next thing is, big ideas got, okay, so what have I got? I've got the big problem. Then I need to be able to reveal a claim of solution. Then I need to reveal the use of proceeds and how and when investors get paid. Sorry. So the big idea is, here's what the big problem is, and here's a claim of solution. The next is a deal summary. So rather than waiting till the end of a presentation, I want to get the deal on the table as soon as possible. Here's the big problem. Here's our claim of solution. My team and I have figured out that to get the best return for our investors, we're raising $2 million as part of a preferred shares offering. And so I do that to cover these topics as soon as is possible. The next thing I want to do is say, here's what we're going to do with the money or resources that we raise. Angel investors in particular have a preference for being engaged in the business. So what kind of help can an angel investor bring to the transaction is something that's always important. So once I've done this, I said, I'm going to spend money on sales. I'm going to put on marketing, G&A, R&D, and whatever other. I need to make that visible as early in the conversation as possible. The next is, and this is the pivotal point of a presentation, it's how investors are going to get paid. And if you haven't done your homework as an entrepreneur, and you haven't figured out how you're going to get liquidity for your investors, they are already automatically left worried, concerned. How am I going to get my money back? Because investors, especially in early stage companies, the only vehicle they have for liquidity, that is to get their resources back, is some kind of change of ownership. And if you haven't thought that through, you've already developed mistrust. Does that make sense? Question, is this making sense? hopefully this is building on something that makes that is useful, not just to me, but to lots of others. So not only do you have to say, yes,
you see change of ownership, you assume that like after a certain point, either I go to merger and acquisitions, or you have an IPO, or basically change of ownership means that another group is going to come and take the place to next step. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So there's only a small number of options, and there are variations on the M&A theme, the public offering theme, and there are more options for public offerings today than there ever have been before. There's things that called SPACs, and they're essentially already pre-existing customer company shells that are publicly traded and listed, and usually reasonably well funded. So that is one exit path. It's pretty unusual, but it's happening. There's a couple of my clients that are in the midst of that right at the moment. And then the timing is, well, is this going to take, is this going to be, is there likelihood for an exit very shortly, or more than 3 years, or more than 7 years? Setting those expectations is really important, because different investors have different thresholds of tolerance with regard to this issue of timing. Who's willing to wait for 3 years and have $2 million tied up for 3 years, or $5 million for 7 years or 10 years? The payoffs for those extended periods of time can be much bigger, but they are also much riskier. The longer the timeline, the greater the risk. So this is the pivotal part of any presentation. How are investors going to get paid? Now, let me just take a sideline here. I attend pitch events probably 3 to 5 times a week. And because they're online these days, it's so much easier to participate in more. It's just, and I get to see some of the most amazing stuff and some of the most crazy stuff. Those things give people new opportunities, but you have to be very, very well prepared if you're going to get in front of a bunch of investors that can be spread all over the world. And so that whole dynamic is changing. And it's fascinating to see how that's impacting things like Sandhill Angels and Band of Angels and Keiretsu Forum, and on and on and on. It's very interesting how it plays out. But this is the key, and this is the crux. Now, once you've gotten to this point in a presentation, this is the promise that you as an entrepreneur are making. Everything else that comes out of your mouth and gets perceived from your behavior must be focused on how you're going to mitigate risks associated with this outcome. Investment opportunity, risk mitigation. Absolutely essential. Now for Hamid, some of the people that you work with regularly are looking for a job. And when they go into a job or they're evaluating an opportunity, if they can focus on what they have delivered, their accomplishments, and how that can improve the performance of the investor that's going to hire them, because all the hiring managers are investors of sorts. And having this kind of a structured conversation will automatically help them resonate with hiring managers better. So now, how am I going to mitigate risk? Well, the first thing I need to know is, what are the major risk domains of early stage companies? Inc. magazine and others have done research on this. The Gallup organization has done research on this for decades. And what they currently present is that the key risks of failure fall into three major chunks. One is the people. The next is the value proposition, the value stream. And the third is practices. So if I don't have good people and I don't have something that's truly valued by the marketplace, and I don't have good practices, any one of those three can kill me. But these are the risks that are of most significance and in this order. So as we unfold this risk mitigation part of the presentation, we're going to go through topics of descending risk impact. Now, I'm sharing this with you because at least the three of you that are participating in this call are already seasoned investors. And so this is a good way to help you think about how do you manage your investment conversations. Okay, so the first is people. So the first thing that I want you to talk about as an entrepreneur is, here's why my leader, the leader of my business, should be trusted with your money. Now, and that's all accomplishment-based, not experience-based. Experience and accomplishments seem like the same thing, but they are not. It's really important to keep that distinction. What has the leader accomplished that has me believe he can do it again, or she? Of the team, what has the team members accomplished, and why should they be trusted with my money? Influencers, and this is something that we oftentimes skip, but this is advisors, board of directors, attorneys, CPAs, the advisors, the people who shape your executives' business decisions and choices. What do I know about them, and should they be trusted with my money? The next thing is, what's the value risk? Let's see, how about the market? Is there a market for the big idea that I have already told you about? How big is it? How diverse? What's its shape? The product. How well does the product satisfy the pain associated with the big idea? Oh, okay. So I've got a market. I need to scope it. I need to define how my product is fitting into the market and how it satisfies the big idea problem set. And is it big enough to generate the outcome that I just promised a couple slides ago? Is it making sense so far? Okay, so the final thing that I want to talk about on this page here is the value risk has to do with how you take your product to market. It's not clear that if I figured out a new way to sell travel trailers, that eBay is a good place to market travel trailers. However, partnering with Costco's travel service may in fact be an interesting go-to-market plan. And one of the things that I admonish frequently is people talk about a go-to-market strategy, and the strategy word at this stage of the investment process is like poison. For most investors, the strategy word is a declaration that they haven't figured it out yet. And I'm seeing Hamid smile. And this is, this is something that plays out over and over again. So market, product, go-to-market plan, not strategy. That if you've got something and it's coherent, you're already resonating with me. Or I've said, I don't have any interest in this at all, and I will disengage as quickly as possible. Now, every once in a while, I'll stumble across entrepreneurs who go, they freak at this. And my response is, I've sold millions of dollars worth of software. And one of the things I learned was that all of my competitors put all the tough news to the end. And I said, I'm always going to get the deal up front, and I'm always going to get the outcomes available as soon as possible so that they can say no. Lose early to win big is a very important sales tactic. So that's that. So how am I going to mitigate? What's the next class of risks, which is practices risk? So I've now said, I've told a story about whether or not my people risk is under control. I've now told a story about whether my product risk is under control or my market risk. And finally, I'm going to talk about the practices risks. So can I execute a business that's actually going to generate profits, revenues and profits that will enable me to grow explosively? Because early stage investors, by necessity, invest in businesses they believe will achieve explosive growth. The explosive growth is an essential foundation for explosive valuation growth. And it's valuation growth, not sales, that causes investors to win. And those two things get collapsed so often, and oftentimes even with investors. Sales growth helps to indicate that valuation growth will trail along right behind it. However, Jeffrey Moore wrote a book many years ago called Crossing the Chasm. And Crossing the Chasm reveals the fallacy of that belief, because early sales can be enthusiasts and visionaries, and you run across this chasm, and unless you have a tactic or a plan to get across the chasm, bam. And so that's what you want to be able to do here, is to find out whether you've got the practices in place to discern whether or not somebody is in a business that is a visionary's business, an enthusiast business. So questions, I'll take a break. Everybody doing okay? So let's see, I got something here. I got something in my
I was just
chat. Yes.
admiring what you said, valuation growth versus sales growth. That's a good one. I really like that.
Thank you. But you know, at the end of the day, Hamid, that's what you're really buying into. And the unfortunate thing is that many of us as entrepreneurs don't realize that's the core game. Not the only game, but that's the core of it. So thank you very much. So now I need to look at, how do I manage my operational forecasts? Well, this is really important because the operational forecast, something happened to my screen here.
We can
Sorry.
still see that.
So I'm trying to go backward.
Oh, there we go.
So see this thing here, go-to-market plan? So when I tell you, when I'm speaking to you as an investor, I say, here's my my go-to-market plan. That is what provides the foundation for the next thing, which is my operational forecast. If those two things don't link together, your investors will fly out of the room, except they won't walk. Their brains will, they'll go to Maui, or they'll go to Cabo, or they'll go to some place where it's warm and comfy. Those two things must tie together. Then comes your financial forecast. If you start with financial forecasts and then try to go to here, that will be obvious to any investor. And that sequence is not sustainable. Once you've gotten to here, the only thing that really remains for you to express is, how are you going to protect the intellectual property interests of the investors? So do you have contracts with your shareholders, your employees, your contractors, your suppliers? all of the employees and contractors and advisors need to have an agreement that transfers ownership of their innovations to the company. If you haven't done that, the company can go to zero in a heartbeat after they've been funded, and your money just flies away. So what seems like a relatively trivial process here, this IP protection, this is an absolutely essential component of any due diligence process. Do you have any patents, trademarks, trade secrets? Those are the things that are most visible, but those are rarely the things that are the most painful. So with that, a quick review is, what's my big idea? What's the terms of the deal? What's the use of proceeds? What's investor payoff? And a call to next step. So I want to recap what I opened with. So I've said, here's the investment opportunity. Here's how we're going to mitigate risk. And here is a recapitulation of the payoff. Right down here. So this is the crux of everything. You split the time 50-50. 50% of the time, whatever you have available, whether it's 1 minute or 10 minutes or 20 or 2 hours. When you split the time up, 50% investment opportunity and 50% capital risk mitigation, then you have an opportunity to resonate with people because you're building layer upon layer of increasing measures of detail on each of those conceptual platforms. So there is a great deal of discipline and purpose to this architecture of a framework. So this takes us then. So what I'm going to do is go through here. All of this presentation will be available through Diana or me, but my suggestion is you reach out to Diana or Sandy, and they can get to me, and I will forward you a copy of this presentation, because I don't want to go through this minute by minute. But what we do is there's designed into the architecture is a relative amount of time for each of these topics. So 25% of the amount of the time is available for the big idea. So if I've got 2 minutes, then I've got 30 seconds. If I've got 10 minutes, I've got 150 seconds. And they broke out here, this is the word count at a typical speaking rate. Now, as for me, I talk too fast. So I can get more words in, but that doesn't always work well. So big idea is 25% of the time. The next thing is, get over here, is the capital being raised. I got 5 or 30 seconds. The next is, what am I going to do with the money? That gets 5 or 30 seconds. How do investors get paid? Oh, 90 seconds. This is really, really important. And this is about as important as that one up there. So now, whoops, I did it backwards. Sorry. So 90 seconds for how investors get paid. This is how the time is divvied up for risk mitigation. You see what I'm getting at here? Is it making sense? And so down here is the call to action. Any of you who have ever been salespeople, this is what's called close. That's a call to action. And people will either be in alignment with what you've shared, or they won't. And the biggest mistake is when people try to change, when an entrepreneur tries to change an investor's mind. It usually turns out to be embarrassing for one or both parties. And if what you've done is build this sense of resonance through this conversation, this is almost anticlimactic. It is, what do we need to do to make this happen? And it turns out it's very low pressure and high effectiveness because it's building on progressively demonstrated trust. questions, comments, protests?
Great presentation. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah.
So, you know, just because of some of the people that you're working with are changing jobs, several years ago, there was a big change in Pleasanton, Dublin, which I was, at that time, I was living in San Ramon. Safeway was merged with Albertsons. And there were literally thousands of people who were either being laid off or reassigned. And I knew a bunch of people. And so I started a program, if you can't find a job, make one. And it was very well received by many of the people who were in transition. And I've worked with two different, I would say, nonprofit outplacement groups. One is called Sing, which is in Alamo or Danville. And
Danville.
there was,
It is in Danville, yeah.
oh, so you know about Sing?
Yeah,
and,
I do.
And there was another one, and I was excited because you knew who Sing was, and it just jumped the other one right out of my head. But it was sponsored by CPC, which is a church in Danville. So one was in Danville, both of them. So
yeah, I know.
Sing
Yeah,
Sing is run by a good friend of mine.
Yeah, I know. I think a guy named Tracy, that's right, the CPC.
Yeah,
right?
Dean Tracy was the one at CPC.
Right.
And was been very active for about 20 years. I think Dean retired from that.
He did.
A
He
few
moved
years
to
ago.
Somewhere close to Tahoe, somewhere, taking care of the horses and.
Yes, he's a horsey guy.
Yeah, he is.
So, and I was very happy for him because he worked very hard at that. So anyway, this model, this communications model, is something that works in a variety of settings. It is partially when in the middle 80s, I was selling case tools, software to improve programmer productivity, kind of like the no-code movement today. And I used this kind of a sales model to sell several $1 million worth of software to Fireman's Fund and Hughes and Lockheed and Boeing and on and on and on. And whenever you're making big choices, big decisions, this kind of communications is an adaptation of something that I learned from Dale Carnegie sales 50 years ago. And Dale Carnegie invented a new architecture for selling that was radical in its day. And this is the same kind of thing. So here's reading list that you can get from the PowerPoint. And there's some links here to videos that are very compelling. This one on the top is about how Steve Jobs used to prepare for his WWDC presentations that always looked like they were just off the cuff. They were not off the cuff. He prepared from 8 to 12 hours per minute that he was going to be on stage.
Wow.
I'm
sorry, you said that there's a link. I see the reading list, which I love a lot. I like the outliers. I'm Malcolm Gladwell. He's done a couple of them. Outliers is a good one. But where is the link? I see your LinkedIn, and I see, but any of those
on this? Sorry, there's one more page. I missed this one.
There we go.
Sorry.
No,
I forgot to advance a slide. So there's in the PowerPoint itself are these links, and you can use them. I'm a published author. My book is titled Paradox of Excellence: How Great Performance Can Kill Your Business. And it's been very popular in the supply chain industry. So we've sold 25,000 copies or thereabouts. So it's been respectively received. It's not quite as big as my friend Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm, or any of his other books for that matter. But he was gracious enough to introduce us, Michael Weissman, my co-author, and I introduced us to his literary agent, and he got us a deal with Josie Bass. So that's been lots of fun. So here we are. It's 5 minutes till 6. We've had a few questions. So Don, you've been very quiet. I don't let you get away with that. So what do you think about all of this? Is this helpful to you?
I do have a question. I think the approach you show us is a well thought out, that is, the person who had the big idea has thought through it and can see the intermediate steps and the end steps. And so you present this whole complete picture.
Well, thank you.
Very often, the person who comes up with the big idea does not necessarily see the end of it yet. So, when you get into venture capital business, there could be several stages. You may only be interested in the initial stage, and then you see what the next stage is. You get more funding, and so on. So in other words, you may not see the ending right away. So therefore, the approach, maybe just focus in the initial part until you get some initial funding, and then you can talk about the next stage.
Yes. So this presentation is specifically designed for initial funding. So one of the things that some entrepreneurs learn in this process is that they need to have a capital plan that envisions several rounds of investment capital. And to be able to, I want to go back to so these operational and financial forecasts. The operational forecasts are about activities. Financial forecasts are the consequential economic impacts. And so there's working capital and growth capital. And so entrepreneurs that merit investment have already given thought to the multiple rounds of equity financing they are likely to need. The ones that have not given that much thought are the ones that have a very difficult time raising money, because investors don't trust that they have thought through where they're going. They may not be right, but at least they have a scenario and a plan that we're working through. And that's far less risk than not knowing where they're heading. So there's another comment in chat. Oops.
It was just me saying thank you. You did a great job. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
And so you live here in Northern California. I'd love to learn more about what you're doing and see if there's a way.
Sure. Actually, I'm just going to put my contact in chat. And many of those investment firms that you mentioned, Kritzer Forum, Vidrandi, and Max Shapiro always goes there, and
Yes.
also Bands of Angels, and a bunch of other ones. Golden Seeds was one that
Oh, yes. Huge.
It was mostly for ladies who are entrepreneur or who are investors. So I've been to many of those. I have been an investor myself, and I have been also a partner in some big ideas, stuff like that. Some did very well, some unfortunately didn't do well. But as
Yes.
long as the ones that do well outperform the ones that they didn't do well, that's all you need to know. So, and within my organization, we had a subgroup that it's called entrepreneurship. These were people who said, okay, I'm done with this whole thing. I have an idea and I want to start my own. Most of my members are high-tech people. And so they
Yes.
had great ideas, and that's how I started the organization. But anyhow, I'm going to put my information here in this, so you will have that. That's my.
Okay. And also send a note to Sandy, and I'll make sure that I get Sandy a copy of this so that she can distribute it to you and to Don and anybody else. But also, it would be very helpful if you found this useful. We can use, Diana and I can use your help to bring more visibility to this program. I'm going to be doing this, what I just did today, every Monday at 5 o'clock. And so helping Diana and I find those people that would find this useful that's really important. So if you can help out on that, that would be graciously welcome. Okay. So Diana,
Yes.
I think I've answered all of the questions.
Great, great.
Don,
Thank
do you
you.
have any more questions or comments?
Yeah, I do have one more question. It's sort of related to my first question. Actually, all my questions are related to each other. And that is, sometimes when you talk to a venture capitalist, it may not be just one person. It may be a team of people.
Yes.
And part of the team will be more interested in the big idea. Part of the team will be more interested in the question that you addressed at the very beginning. And that is,
Yes.
when do I get my return on investment multiple times? And then
Yes.
all those intermediate steps that you thought through, and then some people on that team may be interested in that. But sometimes the person in the team, maybe even the most important person, is whether they like the big idea. So therefore, depends on the team. Sometimes
Yes.
your pitch on the big idea may be more important than the pitch along on all the subsequent questions which you have to address. That's
Yes.
what I'm saying.
So I agree with what I think I just heard you say, which is different teams will place different levels of importance on the various topics that are encapsulated in a perfect pitch. And there's some members of the team that are completely wound up, completely focused on product. And there's others that are focused on finance, and there's somebody else that's focused on HR. But all of those things need to come together in a way that is believable. And so that's the struggle that entrepreneurs have, is figuring out, how do I get my story together in a clear, concise, cogent, and coherent way? Because if I can't address all of those 4 C's, then the likelihood that I can raise money is very low. And it can be I have seen so many great ideas not get funded, not because they're bad ideas, but they can be great ideas poorly told, poorly represented. Now, bear in mind, just because you get an investor's attention, or as soon as you've got investors' attention, they're watching everything you do. How do you eat your hamburger? Or do you eat a hamburger? It's the things that come to bear on the likelihood that I get my money back are crazy. And some of which are, they're just not really relevant. And sometimes investors make requests or demands of entrepreneurs that are just unreasonable. And if you don't have the strength of character to walk away, you've already lost. So that's my 2 cents worth. It's now 6:05. You guys get to go have a nice, wherever you are, have dinner. Hamid,
Yeah.
thank you for your comments.
Thank you
And
very
Don,
much.
Yeah, my pleasure. This was really good. I feel that we had a private instructor here. So that was really good.
so, well, I'm glad
Thank
you
so much,
enjoyed it.
Diana, for this event. That was great. And so, as always, great.
Thank you, Hamid, and thank you, Don, and thank you, Jim. Thank you, everybody. And
Thank you.
please send your email. I saw Hamid email there, so all the others, you can leave your email, and I'm going to send an email and connect all of you together. And hope we can help each other on our entrepreneurship journey.
And
And
please-
Hamid, by the way, Hamid and Don, how did you hear about this workshop? You saw that on
Received an email this morning from Ding Ding.
yeah. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
I got an invitation from Sandy, but I've been to many of your events, Diana, before many years ago, and I've seen you several times at CASPA events and many other events, and so we have seen each other when we could meet in person. So
Yeah.
the reason I want to say that I've met Dave in person too, but I'm getting old. I don't remember, so don't ever get old. That's the thing. And by the way, Diana, Happy New Year, Happy Chinese New Year.
Thank you. Yeah.
I just sent you my email through the chat.
Oh yeah. Okay. Great. Oh, down at toad.com. Yeah, I saw that. Okay, I'm gonna send an email to both of you, and let's connect there. And hope to see you next time. I also give you my email and Sandy's email. Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you so
thank
much.
you.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Dave.
good night, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Dave.
much.
Let's
Bye.
give us thanks to David. Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Bye.